2, 1. We are live. What is going on, everybody? My name is Adam, and you are hopefully watching the Our Real Addiction podcast. We do have audio versions, but me personally would love for you guys to check them out on YouTube. And if you already haven't, please subscribe. But either way, if you are listening or if you're watching, you can find all the links to our social media pages down in the description below. So go check that out. We got a couple things I want to talk about. Well, really one thing. I'm going to be talking about Poor Things today because I saw it the other night, and I really want to talk about it. So I'm going to go through the box office, and then we're just going to be talking about Poor Things and really just my thoughts. I don't know how long this episode is really going to be, but I just want to give you my thoughts on this film because I think this film does a lot of things great. But I did have a couple gripes with it, not too many. But yeah, for the most part, I enjoyed it. I'm going to get more into that, but first I'm going to run you through the box office for the final week of 2023, or the final weekend, I should say, for 2023. So, coming in, here's the box office numbers for December 29th through the 31st. Coming in at number 5 is Anybody But You, making $8.8 million. That brings its grand total up to $33 million, 27 of that being domestic, and $5 million of that being international. Coming in at number 4 is The Color Purple, the newest remake. It made $11.7 million and currently sits at $46 million worldwide. However, I should say that with an asterisk just because it hasn't been released worldwide. Its only run has been domestic this last week and a half. It's been out roughly a week and a half. But that is the remake of the original film. I think it's like a 50s film. I haven't seen it, though. Coming in at number 3 is Migration, making $17 million, bringing its grand total up to $105 million. $59 million of that being domestic and $46 million of that being international, giving us a grand total of $105 million. Coming in at number 2 is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, making $18.3 million, bringing its grand total up to $255 million. 81 of that being domestic and $173 million of that being international. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Wonka, making $22.5 million, bringing its grand total up to $384 million. 139 of that being domestic and 244 million of that being international. So yeah, no surprise with this box office. 6, 7, and 8 are The Boys in the Boat, The Iron Claw, and Ferrari, which are all films that are being talked about right now. I do want to see The Iron Claw just because I am a real big a wrestling fan, so the story of the Von Erichs is a fantastic one, so I do want to check that out. But yeah, I forgot to mention, before we get into anything else, and by anything else I do mean Poor Things, check out all past episodes of Movie News Monday and the podcast. Like I said, I am currently working on getting all the old episodes onto the podcast so that onto the YouTube channel, just for you guys, just for anybody who wants to see some of the later videos, can definitely check them out. I have had a couple requests just because I do have buddies on there who haven't been able to find those old YouTube channels old videos that were on another YouTube channel. So definitely go check definitely just stay posted for that, because there might be a week where I take a week off from the podcast just to upload all of those videos, because honestly, there's about a good year's worth of episodes, maybe a little more, of videos to me to upload. So I don't know how, or maybe we might have to take a little, maybe I might have to take a little hiatus from the podcast to upload all those just so it's not completely bombarded. Um, but yeah, definitely stay tuned for that because I do want to get those up on the channel just for you guys to see all the older stuff. Um, but we're just gonna get right into Poor Things. If you haven't already, um, Poor Things is essentially a new take on Frankenstein. At least that's how I understood it. And I want to say when I originally talked about this film months ago on the podcast, I believe that's how it was advertised to being a new modern look at our modern take on Frankenstein slash the Bride of Frankenstein. And so I finally got around to seeing it. I know Joseph talked about it last week on the podcast, saying it was one of his favorite films of the year of 2022. And yeah, I mean, I can definitely, I don't know if I necessarily agree, but I can agree that this film is absolutely fantastic. Um, there was a couple things in this film that I really, really, really did love. So obviously, like he mentioned, the world building. The world building was fantastic. There were so many colors, and there were some color palettes, and there were so many great things that really made the worlds definitive. I say worlds and cities because they are on Earth, and they do travel from city to city. Excuse me. So the world building, in my opinion, was like Joseph said, was absolutely fantastic. It is one of the probably the best thing of the film is the world building, because we spend a lot of time in these different locations that are in the film, and we spend a lot of time getting to know these places and what they're kind of, and getting a sense of how they really run and like how different they are from each individual play or individual city within the film. So there's London, there's Paris, and there's a couple other cities in Europe that are, and then that are in the film, and then even there's a few scenes in the film that does take place on a boat. So or I should say on a boat, on a cruise. So it was really, really fantastic. And I just feel like we got to see kind of like the everyday life in these cities, and I feel like that was a really, really fun part of the film, or a really good part about the film, because again, it really engulfs you into the world and the different worlds of these different cities that they were showing us within this in this story of Poor Things. Another thing that I really, really loved is the camera work. I loved, absolutely loved the camera work. There were so many interesting lenses used, and at some point we got fisheye lens, which I thought looked fantastic. It looked really, really cool. But there were also, like, the camera was worked really, really well in this film, just because I feel like there were zooms a part of it that really, really helped and really intensified some scenes, making you feel that almost like emotional distress that you should be feeling in the film. And another thing I like, if you, again, light spoilers, actually at this point, spoilers completely from here on out, I guess you can say. But one thing I really loved is how different Emma Stone's characters both were. If you don't know, eventually, or well, if you haven't seen the film, spoilers again. Essentially, Emma Stone plays two characters in this film. We only get a glimpse of flashbacks and even interactions and kind of like these callbacks to this character in the film, but we never fully see her fleshed out as the first character, and I even forget the first name. But essentially, Emma Stone plays Bella Baxter in this film, and she lived a past life. Essentially, Emma Stone's original character kills herself while she's pregnant. She jumps off a bridge, and she commits suicide in that way. And that is where William Dafoe's character finds her and essentially removes the baby and its brain, and essentially attaches that brain, the baby brain, to Emma Stone's character. I'll get more into that, but I love how different the characters were, and how, I guess you can say, how much it really worked, because I feel like it really worked when they were having moments call back to it, because it almost, like, at the end of the film, I feel like they spent a lot of time with developing Bella's life, her new life, but also her past life, even when they came back to it. So it was really nice. Like at the end, we kind of came full circle with all the characters involved in this film. One of the lower points, and I don't want to say it's like a lower point. I guess even well, like for me personally, I feel like there was just way too much nudity in this film for the sake of just having nudity and kind of being like a film that's just like way out there. Because if you watch this film was way out there. It's a yeah, for lack of a better term, it's a chaotic film. I don't want to say it's a messy film because it's not. But so there was some nudity in the film that I just don't think was like necessary. If again, like it just felt like they had nudity in this film for the sole purpose of simply just having nudity in this film. I just feel like there were many scenes where you could have effectively told this story without having Emma Stone or anybody else nude in this film. Outside of the scenes where William Dafoe's character Godwin is performing surgery on, or I should say autopsies on the bodies. I feel like that was completely necessary because he essentially is the mad scientist. But a lot of like the sex scenes and a lot of the scenes where Emma Stone was nude, majority of them, honestly, in my opinion, if not all, weren't necessary. I understand the story they were telling as coming as a person just coming into their own and like developing. I just don't think it was necessary to effectively tell this story. You could have effectively told this story without having any of it and have all the key plot points and all the key, storytelling plot points come back and just be fine and be just as good, in my opinion. I also, too, I will add. I feel like that's kind of just like a nitpick, just because, in my opinion, the nudity doesn't necessarily take away from the film, like I said, but it also doesn't add to it. So it's kind of just like unnecessarily there. But I understand what they're saying. Also, too, I gotta say, I really love the dynamic of the relationship that Emma Stone's character and William Dafoe had together in this film. I feel like they were just so good together on set as adoptive father and daughter relationship. It was really fantastic. And again, William Dafoe just knocks it out of the park in a film like this. I feel like also Mark Ruffalo was a fantastic was a fantastic part of this film. If you don't like, if you haven't seen the movie, he like, for lack of a better term, he's kind of just like a whiny bitch, and it's funny and it works so well. Because he truly does add another level to this film, and I just think it worked really well. And also too, like I said, like the callbacks to like her past, like there's a scene specifically where she is, so essentially in the film she is essentially coming into her own, like, so at the film she's infant, her mindset is very infant, she is literally a baby because she had an infant mind obviously put in, or infant brain placed into her brain, and so that brain started growing once it was attached to a living body, or a body that he was able to save. It is revealed that he was able to save her, whether he should have or not, which is something he kind of, William Dafoe's character struggles with, which I think is really cool, is that his morality of what he's done, but also loving, or also loving his work, I should say. Um, so there's this scene where I think she goes to like Greece or Athens, might be the same place. If it is, I do apologize. The American school system failed me. That's all I'll say. There's a scene where she does travel to a world, and one of the characters takes her offshore, or off the boat to shore, and they're basically having like dinner, and then they oversee basically where these babies have died from starvation, or they've been eaten in this like third world country, and essentially her Bella, Emma Stone's character, her thing to do is essentially jump off of this like broken staircase. And I think it's just a really nice callback to her past character, because of the fact that they were showing that, hey, even though this is ultimately a different person because of the brain that is developing into Bella's character, her natural instincts were to still once again jump off and attempt to commit suicide. Excuse me. So I thought that was just really, really nice about this film. Also, too, I don't know who played like the her boyfriend and like also studied her. Let me look it up. He plays Max. Excuse me. Rami Youssef. His character was just like completely, I don't want to say like pointless and useless because he was a scientist himself and he was very much interested in in Bella's life and like her development. Um, he was just kind of pointless. He was just kind of there. He did serve purpose towards the end, but it was for the sole, it was for the sole purpose of kind of giving the character like a happy ending, in the sense of her, like they get married and I don't know if they have kids. Um, but yeah, like his character kind of just in my opinion a little pointless. Overall though, I think it was excuse me. It was just it was fantastic. Um, but overall, I enjoyed this film. It is an instant classic. And if you don't know, it jumps from black to white. Some of the scenes, majority of the present day, or I should say, when you don't know what happened to her, is when is when it's black and white, and when you finally start to realize what's happening, that's when things kind of start to turn to color. So again, if you haven't seen the film, really quickly, I'll explain it. Essentially, Bella Baxter, like I said, is a young woman who has died while she was pregnant, and then Dr. Godwin Baxter is basically puts her back together, brings her back to life. That is where you get the sense of a new interpretation of Frankenstein. So as she's growing, as her mind is growing, she's obviously developing more as a human. She's developing more as a person. She's coming into her own. She's growing up, literally. Even though she is stuck, she at the entire time, whether she has a child's mind, she is stuck in a grown adult's body. And so we see the progression of where she acts like a toddler. She's throwing tantrums. She's throwing things, breaking things. We see all that. Then we see her when she starts to grow up and kind of becomes a mid-teen, a little bit of like a young adult. Then we see by the end of the film, she's a fully blown, grown adult, I should say. And like the film just works really well. It is 2.5 hours, which you kind of, at least for me, I didn't really check my phone, or excuse me, I didn't check my watch. And there have been countless times this year or past year in 2023 where I would look down at my watch and be like, okay, I still have an hour of this. This is kind of dragging. I didn't really feel that with this film, at all. I mean, I don't remember. I can't really remember checking my watch. I'm sure I did because I just naturally do it, just to, for other purposes, just to see if I received any important messages that I need to respond to quickly. But, but out of the purpose of being bored, yeah, I don't think I ever really checked this film or checked my watch for the sole purpose of, okay, I still have an hour or something like that. But I do want to give credit to Yorgos Lanthimos, who is the director of this film, and also writers Tony Naramara, and all that. Oh my gosh, I apologize. Alastair Gray. If I butcher all those names, which I am more than positive that I did, I do apologize. But but yeah, the film was absolutely fantastic. The budget was only $35 million. I say $35 million like it's pocket change. But yeah, I mean $35 million. It is fantastic. I think it was really, really well. Its box office, I do believe, is on the lower side. I'm gonna double check that for you really, really quickly. Yeah, it's at $10 million. However, it's only it's only been released domestically. It's been out about a month now. Came out December 8th. If I do remember, it is a limited release in theaters right now. So it could be coming to more theaters soon. Yeah, I at least I would assume it is. Excuse me. But I would suggest checking it out. I would suggest checking it out just because I think it's worthwhile. This is completely different from anything I feel Emma Stone has done before. A lot of her roles are kind of goofy, campy, funny characters. Um, where she is a I don't want to say like typecast, but like I feel like she's in a lot of like high school movies. Um, excuse me, excuse me, I'm battling a cold. But this is a film where she is portraying multiple characters and the same character at a different age. So there's a plethora of range of her, which we all know she has because she is a fantastic actor. Um, I do believe this is going to be nominated for Best Picture. I'm going to cut this. Like I said, I do think this is going to be nominated for Best Motion Picture or nominated for some awards. I can definitely see that happening. And I'd be happy to see this. Was it on one of my favorite films for 2023? I don't think so. I really don't. I'm probably leaning towards no as I speak about it more. But again, it was a fantastic film. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would suggest checking it out. Outside of the nudity, where it like just felt unnecessary, the film really good storytelling, really good world building, really a lot of good colors, even the scenes that are in black and white, and a lot of amazing camera work. I think that is something I do like, is that the camera work was very noticeable about how good it was. There's only one scene in the entire film that I remember clearly that is like not shaky cam, but the camera angle was just like wiggling so much that was so noticeable in my opinion. There's only one scene I remember specifically that happening. Outside of it, super fantastic. But I hope I convinced you guys to go see it. I think that's going to do it for this episode of Our Real Addiction. As always, I'm Adam. And again, you can find all our past episodes soon here on the Our Real Addiction YouTube channel. You can already find them audio version in the past episodes before. And if you haven't, check out all the links to our social media. As always, I'm Adam. We'll catch you in the next video, our next episode of this podcast. Bye.